you let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Hey! Oh boy, it's 7:02. Hello everybody, it's a great day. It's a Tuesday. It's the 17th, it's St. Paddy's Day. Well, happy St. Patrick's, ladies and gentlemen. Happy St. Patrick's, especially to the Irish out there. I have quite a few Irish friends of mine, mostly hailing from Yonkers. That's where all the Irish really live. Yonkers, New York. There's Dublin and then there's Yonkers. That's the way that it all shakes out. But tonight we've got such a great show. Great show. And I can't wait to do it with you. And we've got a wonderful guest. And I'm going to talk about her in just a second because first I want to just remind you all that for we're going through March now, or sniffing spring. My birthday's on April 2nd. That's just really, no matter how the first day of March, 21st day, the 20th day of March being first day of spring, I always felt like April 2nd was the first day of spring. And I just you can't have it be April 1st. So we're getting there. And I'm giving away silver. Just remember, I've got not only a first prize of 1.5 ounces that we're going to be pulling a name on Thursday night, but 4 silver quarters for a runner-up. So we're going to give away 2 this week. So put in your name through quitefranklysuperchat.com, the YouTube, the Rumble, the Gold Pills. I'll be collecting those throughout the week, and we're going to be adding a lot of interesting stuff to it. Perhaps adding some stuff tonight. So I've got a wonderful friend in studio. Her name is Anne. And Anne Belanger, senior Billings ovulation method teacher trainer. I got to talk to her about this and a whole bunch of other things. 30 years plus of experience, and former UN representative. I don't know if it's even former. It's like going on right now. Anne is from Canada, but she's in town because she's doing work at the UN, and all she loves to discuss and help people with, as she has for decades now, is having children, and having children naturally. Right, Anne? Welcome to the show.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Frank. Thanks for having me in.
Oh, I mean, we've been friends for a while, but it's all like many people in this in the audience. It's just email.
Yeah.
And now this is just so great to have you in here. You're in New York. You're doing your thing. And so what exactly is your relationship to the UN? Because it's not like you are addressing the General Assembly or anything like that, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes on over there in that hard drive of a building.
Yeah, that's true. So the UN has a number of agencies, one of them being the World Health Organization, the other one being UN Women. And in particular, UN Women has set up a branch for NGOs. Now, NGOs are non-governmental organizations. And so I'm the director of Fertility Business Initiatives Institute. It's an organization I founded a couple of years ago in order to promote the Billings ovulation method at the UN. There are a couple of other NGOs that also promote natural fertility at the United Nations. And I was with one of them. I was with WOOMB International. So I was there representing them for about 7 or 8 years. Well, I started in 2015 And then in 2023 is when I stopped with them and I founded my own organization.
That's,
So,
first of all, I got to understand what Billings is, but
Yeah.
right off the bat, I thought this was just really interesting because the United Nations is like ground zero for world is overpopulated stuff. Everything. I'm not a fan of the UN in general. I'm sure
Right.
you watched the show, so I feel like we got to get out and then we got to evict them. But I understand, just like anybody who's doing something that they're passionate about, you got to go where people are and you got to try to advocate, even if you might believe that, by and large, you might be behind enemy lines.
Right.
Think about just broadcasting on some of these platforms. You say, hey, the company culture is not very friendly toward free speech, but for as long as we can get in front of a couple of extra eyes a week, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
So, what is that? What's that like over there? How is your message received at a place like the UN?
So that's a good question. The people that I address mainly are representatives of other non-governmental organizations, other representatives of these non-UN bodies, but they're associated with UN Women. And many of them are coming from African nations. Many are from European nations. Many are South American nations. But the message that I share with helping women understand their fertility naturally so that they can either conceive or abstain from getting pregnant without needing contraceptives is always well received by them.
Oh, I'm sure the abstaining is,
the fact that they don't have to be dependent upon contraception, because like you said, the UN is kind of like ground zero for this whole contraceptive abortion movement. And when nations learn that, for example, the World Health Organization has already examined and approved the Billings ovulation method as an effective method to postpone pregnancy, the people who hear that message, they're elated with it because the UN doesn't actually officially promote that. They promote the abortion contraceptive method, right? And if agencies or organizations or countries want funding, it's usually tied to the contraceptive mandate.
Yeah.
So they don't hear about the natural aspect of it. So they are very happy to receive that.
And of course, you're coming in with you're a mother of 9.
Yes,
so
that's right.
You're coming in from the standpoint of have babies.
Right.
And,
I have babies. Right. But I've always spaced them too. Right. All of my babies are like 2.5 years apart.
Mm. And because you're exhibiting that control of, of what it, and that's the whole, that's, I guess that's where a lot of people are falling. There's always something that's happening and there's always some kind of an intervention. I see, obviously over the course of our talk tonight, we have to discuss not only biological issues, but also environmental toxicity issues. And then there's the culture. I think that's the biggest thing that we have to overcome. But you would think that after however many thousands of years, some people say millions, but however many eons that humans have been on the earth and making babies, that we would know everything there is to know about making a baby, and just knowing your body and reading the signs and all that stuff. And apparently, no, we're very poorly educated, and we are essentially unfamiliar with ourselves. That's where you come from.
Yep, exactly. It's like the best kept secret. That's how I look at natural family planning. It's like the FBI of NFP. That's my slogan. It is like the best kept secret on the planet. People don't know about natural family planning and the effectiveness to either conceive or avoid pregnancy, because when a woman becomes self-reliant and she understands how her body works, she doesn't need any contraception. She doesn't need any hormone replacement. She won't be needing an abortion. She doesn't need any help with IVF, because she's now looking at her own fertility health. And if there are issues with it, well, then she can start looking at what those issues are for her own self without relying on a medical examiner to tell her what she needs to do or what's happening or what's not right and what she's going to have to do. Like, it's so empowering for women to be able to understand this message. I was just talking with a group of them this afternoon, and they're like, you are exactly what I came here for. You are preaching the message I need to hear because my people need to hear this message. My women in my country, in my communities, this is what they need. And, you know, you were talking about the UN not being favorable to it. And my husband does not really like going into the UN, straight up. He feels like it's pretty dismal in there. But when I go in, I'm going in with a mission. And I'm going to ride that wave for as long as I can in order to reach the women across the world. That's really what my focus is. This is women's knowledge. It's knowledge that every woman ought to have. Everyone, Dr. Evelyn Billings was one of our founders. She and her husband, John Billings, founded the Billings ovulation method back in 1953. It's like over 70 years ago, but nobody's really heard of it. And yet there are millions of women across the world who are using the Billings ovulation method to either get pregnant or to avoid pregnancy. They're even in China. Like, this method is everywhere, but you wouldn't know about it if you don't know someone like me who can tell you about it, because there's no pharmaceutical money in it. There's no insurance money in it. There's no medical money in it. In fact, I'll tell you something interesting. When we have our teacher training courses, and we're putting them on, I and my colleagues in Canada, sometimes our quote-unquote students are doctors. Doctors don't even get this message. So why aren't our doctors told? I mean, they understand how our anatomy works, but they aren't really giving all that information about the ins and outs of how fertility comes about and when it leaves each cycle.
Oh, I mean, I don't know.
Unbelievable.
Just from the conversations we've had on this show with people like Jay, we know that basic nutrition is something that is not really even picked up by doctors. Right. So I mean, I think this is a little bit more complex than nutrition about the. So I just it goes without saying that, yeah, knowing how your body works to be able to either conceive, because we're right now we have an issue where there's so many people who are just desperate to have children, especially in the West. And I think that's mostly because we have some cultural issues, but we've also been sabotaged in a long way. It is my opinion that the West has been targeted for destruction because everybody else seems to be going on with it, getting on with it and having, 5 or 6 babies per woman in every other part of the world. So maybe they need this knowledge to have maybe 1 or 2 less if they wanted to. But other than that, whether, like you said, one extreme or the other, I feel like in this, in our neck of the woods in the US and has to be in Canada and in Europe, everybody's on birth control. Yeah. And now instead of thinking about everybody assures everyone that prolonged use of it is totally safe. There's no downside. Right. And instead of thinking about that and asking those questions and investigating the prolonged usage a little bit more, now we're just going into male birth control territory. How to stop either, snipping a guy physically or actually getting into male birth control pill, prototypes and stuff. Talk a little bit about that.
That's very interesting you bring that up, because when the pill was first developed back in the early 60s, it was about the same time that the Billings were looking at the Billings ovulation method. And those two things were happening about the same time, one in Australia, one in the United States. And the first contraceptive pill was actually designed for men. And when they did studies, and they had test studies for these men who would be in their program, they found that the the pill that they were taking, the medication they were taking, would shrink their testicles. They would shrink their, and there's like, the men were like, well, we're not going on with the study. That's not going to happen. We're not doing that. So the doctors switched track and then started looking at developing a pill for women to take. And so that's how the birth of the contraceptive pill came about. They were able to design something that would, first it was designed to suppress ovulation completely, but then they found that was too strong and that women were becoming deathly ill, or even some were dying. So they lessened the dosage and started relying on other aspects that they could include with that shutting down of ovulation. And that would be the abortifacient end of it. So even if there was conception, well, then the endometrium inside the uterus of the woman would drain out, and that would flush away the little embryo. And so you've got both of those things going on with the contraceptive pill. But that's not really talked about.
No.
That's not really brought up at all. And the other thing is that it is systematically damaging the cervical crypts. So there are little crypts inside a woman's cervix where this secretion is designed and flows out of her body. And the secretion helps the woman be able to conceive because it coats and envelops the sperm that would be present in her vagina from an act of intercourse. And then those sperm are taken into the cervix. And then when the woman ovulates, those sperm go up into the fallopian tubes and one will fertilize the egg. But if you don't have cervical secretion being made in those cervical crypts, then when there's an act of intercourse, the sperm that are in the vagina die within an hour. They become no longer viable. There's no motility left. And it's like the natural and normal condition of the woman's vagina is sort of like the beaches on Normandy.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
I've heard that. I've heard that before.
It's pretty bad. So you need the secretion to keep that environment healthy for the sperm to stay alive. And the thing with the contraceptive pill is that it tends to dry up those mucus crypts. So you're on that pill for 10 years. Well, now your reproductive system is looking 20 years older. It like doubles it in age. So you might be a 20-year-old woman on the pill for 10 years. Now you're 30, but you're going to have a cervix that's more of a 40-year-old.
Is that across the board?
That's across the board. This is Dr. Odeblad's work. Dr. Odeblad devoted his entire life to studying the woman's cervix. And that's because he's a Swedish doctor and he joined the Billings. But he got to a point in his medical practice that if he wanted to actually become a full-fledged working gynecologist, obstetrician, he had to perform an abortion. And he didn't want to do that. So he turned his studies all to the research of a woman's cervix. And so that is what he found. And so interestingly enough, you mentioned that I have 9 children, and that's true. Well, with every pregnancy, the cervix regains 2.5 years of life.
Really?
Yeah.
It's rejuvenating.
Yeah, exactly. So by the time I'm 40, which I'm past now, but when I was 40, then it was more like I would have the cervix of a 30-year-old or 27-year-old.
So it is technically it's possible to even reverse what you say is the damage of prolonged use of
yes.
Okay.
Yes, but not in all cases.
Okay.
Some women it's permanently damaged. And so then you get women who don't want to have babies. They're on the pill for 15 years. Now they decide they want to have babies, but darn, they're not getting pregnant. And they're not getting pregnant because there's no ability for those sperm to stay alive because there's no more secretion around to transport them and protect them. And so there's that, it all comes down to knowledge. You know how knowledge is power. If the women knew that if they took this medication for 10 years or 15 years, it was going to damage those cervical crypts, they would say, yeah, no thanks, I'm not going to do that. Because they don't want to risk the fact that maybe they're not going to be able to have a family later in life. But nobody knows that.
A lot of people, and I don't know if this is just what it was, because it started becoming a little bit more popular, and then almost like a punchline when we were in high school, and all of the girls we had been growing up with since kindergarten were starting to. Everybody's getting on the pill, and everybody had said it was never about. Hey, it's contraceptive, and I'm just trying to whatever, and I'm sexually active and all that stuff. The line was always it was hormone regulation, and I always wondered, I mean, what hormones are being regulated, and why this intervention, and was it always necessary? So I just don't know what can you tell me about that line that I'm sure everybody has heard at some point. Right. It's not about my sex life and preventing a whoopsie, but it's about hormone regulation. I was wondering, why are so many young people needing to get hormones regulated by prescription drugs? So is that just a line, or was there something to it?
Well, the thing is, I have another doctor who's a good friend of mine, Dr. Joel Brainz. He's a PhD doctor. Was a professor at CUNY in New York City and microbiology. And he would say that the hormones that's in the contraceptive pill, they're not really hormones, they're steroids. They're not, so they're artificial. And the line, as you say, that they are to regulate your cycle, it's fairly natural for teenagers when they're starting up their cycling, their menstrual cycles. It's kind of normal, natural that they're not going to be regular. They're going to, there's going to be a few months where it doesn't happen, or it's going to be maybe a light bleed, and then another month it's going to be a heavier bleed, and it's not always going to be 28 days apart. I mean, that's another myth. That's because that's what the pill is. The pill is designed 28 days because that way they can regulate the woman rather than follow the woman's natural cycle. But the pattern that is put onto the woman is artificial. So it's about hormone regulation. Yeah, so you take these medications and it's going to put you on a schedule. But that doesn't mean that it's actually going to be working with your natural hormones. It's actually suppressing your natural hormones and then giving you a schedule to follow, to work with. And the doctor might start it off with well, go on this for 6 months, and then that's going to regulate you. And then you can come off it. Do they come off it? Most don't. I mean, you get into a habit, you just always take it. Plus, then there's always the line, well, you might find yourself at a party one night, so it's a good idea to be on it just in case something goes a little too far and you've got protection. But it's not really regulating hormones. It's forcing a whole new schedule on the woman's body. And then eventually when she does want to come off it and have something more natural and understand what's naturally going on, it tends to put a whole bunch of different spokes in the wheel. And
definitely see things. I just been seeing things. It's just incredible what we ate up when we were kids, as far as what everybody's doing. And then to also see where it's being pushed now. Like I say, instead of every 50 years or so, stopping, knowing that societal trends are not always good. Scientific consensus is often proved to be very poorly misunderstood, a mistake. A lot of people get hurt along the way. We know just by the reputation of the pharmaceutical industry and all of the big recalls and stuff like that. I mean, I worked in a pharmacy all throughout high school and college. I can tell you how many times big things were recalled, and and it was giving people heart attacks.
Yeah.
So you think every once in a while it'd be healthy to reassess what we've been doing, how things have been going, and there's no reassessing on this. Like I said, it's more so about, are men ready to get on the pill? And I didn't know that the first pill was for men.
Yeah, initially. And now when they've had, like in the last 15 years, they've had a death or a few deaths of women who, were on the pill and young women, let's say mid-30s, dropping dead. And they examine that and they'll say, okay, well, so this one's coming off the shelf. whatever brand that was. That's coming off the shelf, and we're going to replace it, or we're only going to promote the other brands because maybe this one was a little bit too hard in one area or another. But like you're right, it doesn't really reassess, and it doesn't really fix it. And I have to say, the industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it runs on sick and hurting wombs of women. That's what it is. If every woman understood that she could just follow her natural cycles and not get pregnant, she doesn't have to get pregnant. I have 9 children, but my husband and I wanted to have a large family. So we use that knowledge in order to space our babies and to have another baby and to have another baby and to have another baby. We did that. We chose that. But my colleagues, I've got one with 3 children, one with 4, another one with 2 children, another one's got 1 child. Like, you decide for your own family life what you think is right for you. So it's not like I'm advocating for everybody to have 9 children.
Yeah.
But you can if you want to. And if you don't want to, well, then you just use that knowledge in reverse. When you're fertile, you just don't have intercourse, and it's only for a certain amount of time in that month. And then after that's done, you're infertile again.
You see what it all comes to. It's
There's no money in a woman understanding it herself, though. Nobody else makes a buck.
And again, that's the whole thing there too. You would think that even just to tell the big pharma that you can take your money and shove it, that there would be a modicum of inspiration to have some self-control. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole, what you're describing is the ultimate kind of control over yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Deciding where you're going to go.
Right.
But it doesn't take too much to see that the way that we were all living. I just cracked open the can of my 40s, so it's I still have very, very good recall of what dating and single life and hookup culture was like, and all that other stuff, and the average people, it's not about sex is about orgasm.
Yeah.
And to be able to say, and the real trick is how do you separate the orgasm from the reproduction end of it? And I think that obviously has become the most important thing, because everybody says sex is part of so-called self-expression. Mm-hmm. Everybody's just trying to express themselves. Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it. And so you take a pill to just carpet bomb the entire month, 12 months out of the year.
Right.
And so that you don't have to worry about taking a week off from pleasuring yourself.
Right.
It's just like, I don't know. It's just becoming more and more apparent to me. And, would 22-year-old Frank want to hear anything I'm starting to realize right now? Probably not. And whatever, that's just the way it is. But it's also been nursed into us. This is a part of the societal, cultural end of it, So it's interesting.
Yep. And you think, what? It all started in a way with the liberation of women not having to have babies. So you go back to the 50s, and they started with formula. And Mary Pride, who's an author, and she has this book called All the Way Home, and she has a second one too, which is like more All the Way Home. And she would say that formula feeding is the motherhood of abortion. And that's not to say that it's bad to formula feed your baby. And many babies' lives have been saved by the fact that we've developed formula that we can actually feed them with. But the underlying current is that the woman now could be separate from that infant, from that newborn, because she herself did not need to be the one to feed that infant. The infant could be fed and cared for by someone else, meaning she was liberated from that task. She could go out and work. She could be involved in more other things. All great. And like, I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own businesses. I'm at the UN. I'm doing all kinds of things. But I had my family first. I was home with my family, and my husband was working full time. and I was home with my family. So there's this whole sense of separating the mom from the child, and then being able to see that, well, she could also then think about having intercourse without being concerned about having a child by using the contraceptive pill. And so it just evolved from there. Yeah.
It's just easy. How many, I mean, this is the big one. I'm going to be jumping all over the place here, but I'm just thinking again about the UN. I understand just by what you're saying tonight, and you and I have spoken in the past, just in general, getting to know each other, though. This is the first time we've actually addressed the UN thing, and I know how pro-life you are.
Right. Yeah.
And so I understand that it might be, people might be saying, why would you bring this to the UN, knowing how this is going to be only promoted in a way that encourages women to avoid having children? But I totally see how. Hey, listen, if the first thing and the best thing that we can do is to get people from stop taking these drugs, and stop going to seek all types of medical intervention for something that can be completely regulated independently through nature. Yeah, I mean that's a
game changer.
It's a game changer just in health. Just in the general health of everybody, because we're definitely seeing. I mean, we have to talk about men. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much you can dish on that, but we have to, because whereas women are the focal point of what we've been discussing so far, it is very well known now that there is a major testosterone crisis. Sperm count is just dropping across the board for years now. Yep. It seems everybody's hormones has been disrupted, and we're not popping the pill. We're just drinking the water, eating the food, and whatever the hell else is going on around us. Like the environment is fucked. Right. Excuse my French.
Right. But that also is like, how are you spending your time? Right. There's a lot of men, with the pandemic, right? Everybody's home, and then people go back to work. Well, sort of. Some people are still working from home. Okay, so there's a lot less activity going on. Let's go back to 2018. Everybody was kind of involved in, you're going to the gym, or you had racquetball, or you had cycling, or you had something going on. So you had some sort of activity, some level of exercise. Even just getting to another place was exercise. But then the pandemic hit, and then we're all home. And then afterwards, some of us picked up going back to the gym and taking on some of our activities, but a lot of us didn't. So our lives became a lot more sedentary. And for men in particular, who would be the ones who would be more active, they'd be out of the house, they'd be going to work, taking the bus or driving in and coming back and getting their days done. That's changed. They're now more home. So it's affecting their overall health. And then, as you say, their food, the water, everything they're ingesting, plus the culture. I don't know if you've noticed that. I mean, obviously, the UN is very big on gender ideology. I think they've said there are probably 108 different genders.
They said that?
Yeah. And do not ask me to name them.
Wait. So when you go to the UN, do they have like posters on the wall? There's 108 genders?
No, they don't have posters on the wall, but I have seen sub-publications.
108.
That's what's been touted. Yeah.
And to think that it all started on Tumblr.
It's really quite remarkable is how I'm going to say it. It's really quite remarkable. So there's a lot in society that is conditioning our male counterparts, like our male brains, to be thinking in terms of female abstracts. So you walk into a store, you go buy yourself a shirt, they're going to put it in a pink bag and hand it to you. Like, and you just say, well, whatever, it's a free bag, I'm going to take it home. But so there's these small nuances that are going on all around us, right? And we're hearing more and more about, transgender ideology. And we're beginning to realize that we have been inculcated with that for decades, unknowingly. No idea. but it has slowly been creeping upon us more and more and more. And now it's pretty blatant out there.
Oh, wait, you know, Anna, I remember this. I remember seeing how bad it was really getting. When we went down to the National Museum in Washington, D.C. It's like in 2018 or something like that. And I remember realizing how hard it was just to find a men's room.
Right.
That it was either mixed gender or female. You can go into a woman's room or you can go into a unisex room and all that stuff. There's like, so, I mean, you want to talk about male spaces and things like that. And you say, well, this is very strange. And of course, the whole transgender thing, I've been saying it for the longest. It primarily destroys masculinity.
Right.
Because the women who want to be men, they'll never be men, so they're always going to be inherently feminine in some way, and in their emotions, whatever the hell it is. They can cut their hair to a crew cut and all that, whatever the hell else, and buy some flannel, and they're still a woman. But every shade of LGBTQ plus all the other stuff is about diminishing the robust, traditionally masculine man into something less than.
Right.
You know, one shade of it or another.
Yeah.
So 100%. I mean, and like you said, that's been building for a long time, and it's definitely come to a head. That's just wonder what the hell it is. I mean, taking an emotional beating can definitely throw your body biochemically into a funk, no doubt about it.
And it causes more men to consider their own masculinity, and we hear a lot about toxic masculinity. And so we're in a generation, well, you're a man, I'm a woman. We get that. But the next generations, it's like, should I really live out my manhood? Or, you know, I don't think women are always thought of less. I think I want to be a man. So there's a lot of that confusion going on in the next generations coming up. It's almost like they feel that they don't have the right to live or express themselves in the sexual identity that they have, that they really should be apologizing for it, and they should be considering another sexuality. So it is very, you know, I think it's incumbent upon us as adults who have lived this life, and we know who we are, and we know why God created us man and woman, to really encourage our young people to live in the lives that they've been given by God, to encourage them, not to discourage them, not to berate them, you know, but to encourage them to take hold of their masculinity or their femininity. And getting back to fertility, I mean, children and their sexuality is issued from the father's sperm, right? The identity of the child comes from the father, because it's either a male sperm or a female sperm that's going to fertilize that neutral egg. So it's really the father where the sexuality and biological sex of that child is coming from. And I think it's important for us to not only remember that, but to encourage that in our young people, that you were made a young man for a reason. You know, you were made a young woman for a reason. That's really who you are. God could have made you differently, but he didn't. He chose for you to be either a young man or a young woman.
You know, now that you brought God up, I wanted to talk to you about, I'll use that as a way to bring up IVF. Now there's a moral argument that has formed around IVF that I didn't even really look into until about a year and a half ago, and we've had some pretty interesting conversations on this show about it. But before we get into the moral, I wanted to ask you, you know, what's your personal, I mean, for couples who have been told you need IVF,
right?
It's something that you've seen work in real life before they ever have to step into a clinic or something like that. Like how many How many instances have you had where somebody has come to you, couples have come to you and said, listen, we were told IVF is the only route for what's going on here.
Right.
And you have said, try this first,
Yeah.
and boom. Like,
Yeah.
how often does that happen?
So that's interesting you bring that up, because that is part of an upcoming talk I have, and coming up this spring, and with the Billings ovulation method, in helping couples who are subfertile and couples who are considered infertile. So subfertility couples would be those who have been trying for more than a year and they're not successful. So they kind of fall within that subfertile category. They may have had a child before, they may not have. But when it gets to 2 years or more, then the industry considers them infertile. Well, with the Billings ovulation method, we've been able to help those couples because very often it's an issue of timing. And when we can help them understand when they are fertile, then we're able to give them the information they need to take advantage of that at a very precise moment. So that's the right time to have intercourse. And it could be as little as 1 day in the cycle. But if we can help them pinpoint that, they can become pregnant on their own. And so we've had success with that. For the subfertile couples, we've had success up to 63%. And
Wow.
for the infertile couples, we've had success up to, I'm going to say 38%.
That's still incredible.
So you still are able, there are some people. Now, look, I have women who come to me and they don't have any more cervical secretion. They're not noticing it anymore. And, I can't get in there and put the sperm and egg together. And they need that cervical secretion, actually, not just to put them together, but it also prepares the sperm to be received by the egg. The egg is rather particular, She doesn't, or I say she, it's not really a sex, but the egg doesn't.
No, we can call her she.
Yeah, she doesn't necessarily take the first sperm that comes along. Okay, girls? Just saying. It doesn't always work like that. She can be a little selective. And then when it's the right sperm, male or female, they have Dr. Pilar Vigo from Chile. She would say there's sort of this key code that matches the egg with a particular sperm. It's like having a skeleton key that's got the right kind of combination cut out on it, and it's got to fit well with that egg. And then fertilization can occur. So, yeah, it's not just anything, There is a reason, there is a rhyme and a reason to it all.
So about 63% with subfertile couples, and then nearly 40% with infertile. And
right.
whereas if they had gone anywhere else, it'd be, we're gonna fix you up with in vitro.
Yep. And I know that President Trump has talked about, making in vitro fertilization available to all couples, and and we all sympathize with couples who are having difficulty conceiving. But IVF brings up a whole gamut. I mean, if you were to really look into that world, that's a whole industry in itself.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
First, of course, there is the moral controversy around it, that because of how many fertilized eggs are used and sometimes wasted, is that as any better than abortion, especially among religious people? On one hand, people are they're out there doing everything in their power to bring life into the world. They want to be parents so bad, and they feel like they're running out of options and time. Mm-hmm. And I completely sympathize with that. But on the other hand, like you said, I have heard that aside from just like the moral, hey, even if you just say let's just fertilize 3 eggs and toss it in and see what happens, people have said no, you have to do more than that, only because the chances you're working against probabilities of what's viable, and then there's other issues. I don't know.
So let me just fill you in a little bit about that. Now, you mentioned Washington, D.C. You were there in 2018. at Smithsonian, one of the
one of them.
and I wanted to say that in 2016 I started to attend the March for Life in Washington D.C. So this march was taking place every year on January 22nd, which is the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. It started in 1973. The first one I went to in the United States was in 2016. It was a horrible, horrible snowstorm, but my husband and I drove down through the storm, attended the march, and it was amazing. Even in the snowstorm, it was amazing. I mean, there were at least 50,000 people there. And that was small because the following year in 2017, over 200,000. In 2018, when you were saying you were in 2018 at some point, this is the middle of January, right? January 22nd, 800,000 people show up. And they march from the National Mall to the Supreme Court. It's an amazing experience. I would encourage anybody to attend if they get the opportunity. The date is now varies slightly. I think this year it was on the 23rd, perhaps. So they've moved it a little bit, but it's still around that point. But this year when I went down to Washington, and I was actually thinking of you, Frank, you and your family. Oh, Frank should come out here and do this march. But again, abortion is not a child's topic. So, every family has to deal with that themselves. And like for our family, we would attend the March for Life, but I didn't usually bring my children to the March for Life. It is a life and death type topic, right? But there was a conference that took place, and one of the speakers worked in the IVF industry, and this is where I'm going with this. He was saying that when couples come to the IVF clinic and they want to have in vitro fertilization, yes, there's more than 3. There's usually 6 to 8 eggs, and they are contracted. So you're signing a waiver for these eggs, and unfortunately, you don't get to own them. You don't own them. So they are the ones who determine which eggs are viable enough to implant. And so any of the eggs that might have disabilities, and you mentioned I have 9 children. I have 2 children with special needs. I have a son with autism. He's on the spectrum. And I have a daughter with Down syndrome. Well, anything like that happens in an IVF clinic, those children are automatically destroyed.
Wow. Well, I mean, autism wouldn't be, but Down syndrome, that would be, that can be, or is it, there's a certain amount of damage to the actual egg that would lead to a higher probability of that, and therefore...
No. Well, that's an interesting point, too. When I was pregnant with my daughter, who has Down syndrome, and yes, she is my last daughter, so she was born when I was in my mid-40s. Well, I asked my doctor about that. It's like, is it because I'm older that I have, this egg that had an extra chromosome and that's the one that conceived? And he said, no. He said, not at all. He said, every woman has about 10% of her eggs that are, not in the greatest shape, let's say. Every woman. He said, the difference is that the older women, like myself, when we find out that we have a baby, a pregnancy with a baby with Down syndrome, we tend to keep them. Of course, I've raised 8 children before this, right? I've done all the laundry. I've done all the lunches. I'm pretty experienced at raising children. So having one more, and yes, having, these disabilities, harder, okay, definitely a new ballpark, but not insurmountable. Whereas a new mom who's never had any children yet finds out she has a baby that's now going to have Down syndrome, and she gets a little more anxious and worried and upset about it and chooses to terminate. So that's the stereotypical thing, that if you're having a baby when you're later in life, you're probably going to have problems. That's not true. You're probably going to keep the problems. That's what's true. You're probably mature enough to handle the problem.
That's interesting, because that does get around. There's a lot. It's good to have someone like you. I wish you came into New York a little bit more often, because there's so many wives' tales about stuff like this. I know it's all medical in nature, but it does constitute as a wives' tale.
Right.
You know, that the older the woman, the higher the
Right.
percentage, the
Right.
likelihood that you're going to have a child with Down syndrome. That's something I've heard a long time because the eggs are old.
Yeah, exactly. The eggs are not old. No. They're all the same age. And actually, when I was a little baby inside my mom's womb, so just a month along, all of my eggs were already being formed inside my own ovaries.
That's what we tell Aurora.
Yeah.
That's what we tell Aurora because when she likes looking at our wedding photos, she obviously she's trying to find a way to say that she was there too, like because she's getting FOMO. She doesn't want to miss out. So
right.
she tells once Lauren told Aurora that, well, you were in my belly at that time because when I was born, you were already inside of me waiting to go. So now Aurora says that she was peeking through Lauren's belly button and she was looking around at the party through her belly button. So that's one of my favorite things now that she says.
Yeah, fun. It's fun. Yeah, children out of the mouth of babes.
I know, absolutely. So, okay, so there's so when you're talking about now getting back to you don't have the rights to your own egg.
Well, you're signing over, right? And so you might be able to say, okay, I would like to have one implanted, and usually they don't just implant one, right? They implant more, 3, 4. I would like to have one implanted, and I want to have 3 in Cairo in case I want to come back and have them implanted at a different time and have a sibling for this baby a couple of years from now. But there is a contractual nature to this whole ordeal around IVF treatment, and there are costs involved. And sometimes these costs are alleviated if you sign a waiver. So they'll reduce your cost by, and I'm making this up, I don't know for sure, but let's say $2,500, they'll take off the cost of the price if you sign over, half of the eggs that they end up fertilizing because they're going to use some for research. And so many couples say, well, yeah, I mean, I'll save. I mean, we all need to save.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all flesh and blood, and we're all, working day to day to put a little savings aside and being, trying to get to our retirement and make sure we're okay. So we're trying to save everywhere. So it's a natural inclination to say, yeah, I'll save some money. Sure. It's like women who will go and have their eggs harvested. So they'll go into the clinic, and, the clinic will remove a selection of eggs, and they'll pay them whatever it is, $100, $1,000, whatever it is, and now you're selling a part of your interior body that you don't need, and it's going to help pay some of your rent. I mean, but then you get into the whole moral thing.
Yeah.
And is it illicit? And if you're talking about a life that's already created, and we have millions of embryos now in Cairo State, what do we do with them? Do we just turn off everything and let them all die peacefully? Do we sell them? Do we try to implant them? It's really quite a moral conundrum.
It is. And the more it was these things were expressed to me, the more I saw it. Said, oh, okay, I get you. Because I'm just thinking, wait a second, we got a man and a woman who's coming into a doctor's office that wants so desperately to bring new life into the world.
Right.
Oh, then I realized what went into it, and of course the storage, and then of course these other legal things that come around with it. Well, I would love to talk about surrogacy with you at some point because we did a couple of shows on surrogacy here and all of the fraud. There's so much going on there, and I guess when it comes down to morality, it once again comes down to the culture that we come up in. And as you can see, as I'm sure that you watch shows like this, and I know what you read and all the other stuff, but the last few generations have been pulled so far away from anything that would be considered a religious moral code into something that would be a little bit more of an atheist, pro-government moral code, which reduces
Right.
unborn children to clumps of cells,
Right.
which also, centralizes healthcare in one country or another, which essentially creates the de facto death panels that, essentially balances budgets by rationing care and only reserving it for people who are still young and viable, instead of giving somebody in their 80s and 90s a right to live out their remaining years with whatever care they may need or want. And it just really reduces human dignity and human life to numbers on a balance sheet.
Yeah.
And so, coming from that standpoint, it's a little bit, it starts becoming a little bit more flippant, a little bit more easier, blasé, even to talk about the waste element of something like IVF, separate from what is a true desire to make a child. And, it's a lot of things are happening at once.
Yeah. And very often these things start with a good intention, right? Like you were saying, you have empathy for that couple who want to have a child. And that's a good intention. The idea of wanting to procreate comes directly from God. It is a good and moral thing to want to procreate, but we have to keep in mind the ways and the means in which we attain that good thing. It matters, because if we don't consider the dignity of the person at every stage, that person becomes a commodity. It's now something that you've exchanged for a value of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where we can't let that happen. We can't go with it there.
Well, you're talking about people who are trying to save a buck. And that economic reasons is a big reason why a lot of people put off having children for so long.
Yeah.
And I understand that too. It's just, you can just say, hey, you know what? And eventually, hopefully, the people just start doing this is, okay, yeah, I'm not where I thought I would be here at this age, at 30 years old, at 33 years old or whatever. But, am I really just am I the end of my family?
Right.
Is this generation, is that it? There are so many people who are just going to be like, I got to have children. I want to at least have that. And so I understand the economic aspect of it. We're talking a little bit about the environmental, what's affecting both men and women, endocrine disruptors, everything, right down to your fabric softener sheets. But then there's the cultural sabotage here aspect. Now, very few of my friends became parents in their 20s.
Right.
Small handful. And we have essentially been pushed for one reason or another, mostly cultural, into our mid-30s before people start choosing to lay down roots.
Yep.
And but to not pick that apart too much, because we've already done enough on there, mainstream medicine says to put off families, that you can have them, in your mid to late 30s just fine, 40s just fine. But I just wonder, is there, at the same time, they also are the ones out there, if you walk into an OBGYN, you're walking into an office, you go meet with your midwives, you've found out that you're 5 or 6 weeks pregnant or something like that. So you go and you start putting together your medical team, and God forbid you're 35 years old, they call you geriatric.
Right.
So at one point they're saying, listen, you have a life to live. Don't think about family now in your 20s and your early 30s. Get out into the world. Of course, where the fuck does anybody go? Nobody goes anywhere. We're just laying around. So we're putting it off, and then around the time that society gives us the green light to go out and lay down roots, they call all of our pregnancies geriatric. So
right.
What is it?
Right. Exactly. So that's a good point, right? It's like there's a push. There's a push to delay, and then when one side gives you the green light to go, the other is saying, "Oh my gosh, you're like way behind the 8 ball here. You're kind of late on doing this. You shouldn't be doing that." And you have to kind of think it's by design. It happens in every culture and across the board. It's this whole idea of wait until you're ready. Heck, you're you're never really going to be ready for your first child. That's, sorry, but that's a reality. Like, there's always going to be things that are going to come up that you're going to feel like unprepared for, whether you're 24 or 34. It's going to happen. But once you get into it, just like when you pick up sports when you're a child, you get a little more adept at it. So the younger you are, actually, the easier it is for you. And in fact, my husband would always say, like, having children is really like a young man's purview. It's much easier. I mean, yeah, you feel like you have no idea what's going on, of course, but you get used to it and you start to pick up ways that make sense to you. And then you have another child. It's like, okay, yeah, and I can run with this. And you become adept at it a lot more easily. By the time you compare that to people who are in their mid-30s, approaching 40s, there's a lot of things in your life by then that are already set in your ways. And when you're adapting to a new baby, which is fantastic, it's great, but it can be a little bit harder, a little bit more jarring, and it's certainly very demanding, like energy-wise. So now as you're older, you find yourself having less ability to do the things maybe you could if you were 10 years younger. Mm-hmm. And you end up having, perhaps instead of having 5 children, you have 3 children. And, you have to think that's probably by design too. You delay everything with 10 years of education because you got to get your education in there and get a good job and pay off all your school debt and get your first car. And
nobody's paying off their school debt.
I mean,
that's the first lie. I got my degree and here's my job. Bullshit. Everybody's waiting for the government to declare a debt jubilee right now. Nobody's getting rid of shit.
That's right.
My God. But okay, so then, but on that though, because I totally see how we've been had in that respect.
We've been had.
But now just talking about the, look but don't touch but don't taste kind of back and forth thing there, does it, because based on what you said before about, the mother in her 40s and the eggs still not being just as viable as they were, 10 years prior. Mm-hmm. So you think that there's no biological disadvantage aside from not being as energetic as you were in your early 30s or late 20s or something like that? Is there no biological disadvantage for having children past the age of 35 when they start declaring it geriatric?
Well, I wouldn't know to say that it was a disadvantage, but you have to think the eggs themselves, they don't age. They're sort of in this chiral state. They're half mature, but with each ovulation, each ovulatory event, right? Each cycle a woman has, one egg goes on towards maturity. And then there's no conception, fine, that egg dies disintegrated. And so they're all sort of in this half mature state. But for a woman who's older now at 35, okay, that's fine with her eggs. Her eggs are in her ovaries, right? But everything else in her body is 35 years old, right? So her uterus is 35 years old, her fallopian tubes, right? Her cervix, her vagina, her muscles, her bones. So that aging, that continues, even though the eggs themselves are still young. This makes it a little bit harder for the woman, not necessarily to become pregnant, particularly if her cervix is still functioning normally and she's making that cervical secretion, but carrying the pregnancy to term can be a little bit harder, right? Because everything about that woman's life now is a little bit older. So in my final pregnancy, I was 44 when my daughter was born. That last trimester, I had developed a blood clot in my thigh. And so I had to be taking like warfarin, but it's actually a tone that's meant for pregnant women. It's not quite as strong as that. And that was like a sign of, okay, my body is showing signs of wear and tear, let's say. The pregnancy was still fine. The baby was fine. The delivery was fine. All that was fine. Yes, she had Down syndrome, but, apart from that, but you could see that my body was not as strong as it had been 20 years earlier. You know.
Yeah.
So there is that consideration that does make it harder for a woman. And as she ages, one of the natural processes is that she's going to produce less cervical secretion. So even without the influence of being on a contraceptive pill, naturally, she's going to start to produce less and less and less as she approaches her perimenopausal years. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, perhaps, to become pregnant as well.
Yeah, that dichotomy makes perfect sense, because I think it's more so on the internet. People are a little bit more crude with counting down when a person's biological clock is right. winding to its final tick, and it usually comes down to people just thinking that you're running out of eggs there, woman,
right,
and it's not obviously not the case. It's more so just, okay, yeah, got you, 100%. But then again, even into later into those 30s and even early 40s, if we were not a society that was just dousing people in drugs, that we would probably be a little bit more spry, a little bit more, everybody, men and women. Yeah. So that's of course gets to the crux of your main mission.
And I wanted to mention also that, you talked about women in other countries having lots of babies. And yes, that's true. But even those other countries, they're all suffering from fertility decline. Like, I don't know if there's 5 countries in the world that have higher fertility rate than what they've had in the past, and that they're actually replacing their population. So you think even of the 50 African nations, and you say, oh, they have lots of babies. Okay, but they're having lots of less babies, and their populations are shrinking also.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's not because of migration?
No. And same with South America. And of course, Europe's done. They're saying another 50 years, 75 years, there won't be any European, which is why they're having so much migration come in from the Middle East and Southern.
So and those are the highest one, like Yemen and stuff like that, where you talk about like 6 or 7 children per woman. You're saying even though it is astronomically high compared to what's going on in the U.S. and throughout Europe, they're still in decline?
They're in decline.
So wait, see, this is another reason.
But we don't know that, right? We're always told like, oh, they've got so much, and like, oh, there's too many babies.
I'm telling you, the world population number.
You're told a lie.
You have definitely heard me say this before. I don't know how to calculate it, and I don't know how to confirm one feeling in my gut over another. It is all just a gut feeling. But that 8 billion number that keeps ticking up and up and up, that is nonsense.
I think it's nonsense. I think myself, if I were, and I'm not educated in that, I have not studied like DISA's numbers. Okay, DISA is the Department of Population. Okay, at the UN. But I would really be inclined to think it's somewhere more around the 4 billion.
4 billion. That's half.
That would be.
I mean, that's enormous. That's an enormous difference.
And that's just me. Again, it's not official, but that would be totally what I'm going with. Yeah.
I'm with you. I think it could be something jarring like that.
Yeah.
But it takes so many people to get in on it. And again, it's almost like with UFOs and the moon landing and aliens and all that stuff. Yeah. There isn't one person on the planet who would want to just spoil the fun and say, no, they never went to the moon.
Well, there's a lot of things out there. And I guess if you're in a situation where it's been made reasonable to you to don't discuss things outside of the box, then you don't. There are many ways that could be happening.
I'm with you on it. The overpopulation thing. And I mean, it's crazy there too. What we've seen in the West is an unprecedented assault. It's a war. It's not being classified as a war by many people because it's not a shooting war.
Right.
There's definitely a lot of societal discord, but unprecedented. Because alongside of the deadly combo of feminism, environmentalism, and all the toxic diets and medicines and all that stuff, is this narrative about overpopulation. Right. And we've gotten that got forced down our throats so much over the last 2 or 3 decades, and everything you would ever need to delay children or swear them off forever has been offered up on a silver platter.
Yeah.
Here's all the reasons why you should not have a family, invest in the future, and also, just keep your legacy going on and have something for yourself, because most people aren't thinking about the greater good of the country. Everybody is thinking about, I got one life. And it's my family and my friends and my little corner over here, my quarter of an acre of grass, a barbecue on Memorial Day, and I just want to live a decent life. And we're being told, outside of all that, 30 years of overpopulation, put all of it off. Every time you have a baby, you're ruining the environment. You name all of the reasons why they gave us. Now we're being told that the population is collapsing.
Yeah.
In parts, just in the parts of the world where they accepted all the liberal programming, and the only solution is mass migration. They don't even get back around to, how do we incentivize Americans, native-born Americans, to have children again?
Right.
They skip right over that and going, listen, if we're going to survive, we got to bring in 25 million third worlders immediately. Right. So everything is just so obvious with the programming here. Yeah. That's why I'm surprised. Whereas they let you into the building, I know that they're only going to be pushing whatever in a way to stop people from having kids in some instances. It's just it's incredible what slippery slope we find ourselves at the bottom of right now.
Well, they at the UN, they do like to they like to inform people, right? So they're really big on knowledge. Now, is it exactly the way? Is it colored? Is it exactly the way it is? Well, when I'm talking about what I do with natural fertility, they accept absolutely that women should have this knowledge because it's a way of empowerment. But again, I work at the NGO level. I'm not working at the member state level, right, with the countries. When I've had opportunity to meet with the health ministers, which I have done, I was able to get to Geneva a few years ago, and I was able to meet with a couple of health ministers. They are interested in what I have to say, particularly when I mention that the Billings ovulation method is already recognized by the World Health Organization. So they're in favor of learning more and more about it. But they themselves are contractually bound to certain agreements. And that may involve things with IPPF, International Federation of Planned Parenthood, UN Women, and other agencies. So even though they're happy to hear what I have to say, they may not be able themselves to promote it. But on the lower levels where I work, the NGO representatives are very happy to hear what I have to say, and they can bring that back to their populations and find out through WOOMB International how they can start thinking in terms of creating agencies and centers where women could come and learn this method for themselves.
That's great.
And that's why I keep doing what I do, but the thing is, there is no money in it. There's no money in it.
Well, speaking of money, there's plenty of money out there, though.
Yeah, it's circling around.
It's swirling all around you. Yeah. But it's not landing in your bank account.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, I put the lines open. It's 914-200-0269. We got Ann here for the next 45 minutes. If you've got questions, I know many of you out there probably have questions. If it's a sensitive question, just I'll call out your area code or whatever, like I usually do to address people. But you just give whatever name you want. Ask a question. It could be whatever the hell it is. It could be from a male or female perspective. Call in, please. And if not, you can send a super chat in, and I will read that off. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, I am giving away a whole bunch of silver. You're getting this big, giant chunk of it if you're the first place winner. Also, Ann.
Yeah.
You gave me 2 things that you would like me to give away.
Yeah,
too.
for your audience, yeah.
Well, so what do we have? First of all, it's your book. This one's your book.
That's my book.
I'll put this with the first place winner.
Fertility Business. And I do want to let everyone know, if they went on to Amazon today, the book is free in Kindle. So you can download it for free through your Amazon app.
Guys, so then look at this right here.
Fertility Business.
There is a free Kindle download. So the Kindle app, I mean, I have that on my iPad as well.
Yep.
You just go on Amazon and you have the book, period.
Yep, that's it.
But this is the hardcover, and we'll put this together with the big piece of silver. And what's this we have over here?
So that is from my company, Anatech LLC, which is an American-based company. Even though I do live in Canada, but I am a dual citizen, and my father's family's from Iowa, and my mom's family was from Montreal, and they met up in Greenland at the Air Force Base and fell in love. And
we have to be suspicious of you dual citizens.
It's okay. I'm not running for president. Yes, I have an American company, and that is one of the products that I sell. And
what is it though?
It is a box of cocktail napkins that are reusable. They're made out of cotton. You would have them with your drinks. You know, you could put them with when you're having wine, or if you have a cocktail or having a hard drink.
Very nice. I'm going to put these with the 4 silver quarters. So this will be with the second place prize. I'll just spread them out so everybody gets a little something. That's so nice of you. And that's great that it's a free download today.
Yep. Today,
okay.
Yep.
Well, there you go.
For all your audience.
I just saw a call come in, and of course, I wasn't there to catch it. So please give us a call back, 914-200-0269. Let us see here. Jay Britt says, great discussion with Ann tonight, Frank. Also really enjoyed the B-side with Grace's dad. Great B-side this morning, an interview, less than an hour with Scott Shara, Grace Shara's dad. He's got a new book out, and it's all about just everything that he has compiled about the protocols of the healthcare system and the hospitals and medical advocacy. It was a wonderful conversation. Just at least listen to it, and he's just such a gracious guy, really awesome. Aaron the Awesome says, podcast listener, not a sports fan, but please keep talking about baseball. I love hearing your opinion. F the haters. It's all culture. Sorry, off topic. Oh, don't worry. And truly, it is all culture. It is all culture. It's necessary, and don't worry. Okay. Well, thank you for the permission. I just need at least one person to say, Frank, can you talk about baseball just every once in a while? You got it, Aaron. Actually, the United States is starting to play right now against Venezuela. Imagine that. U.S. versus Venezuela for the championship of this stupid tournament. I can't wait until it's over and we can just get back to anyway. Running on Empty says, I used natural family planning method 40 years ago. Well, there you have it. Yep. Jay Sem says, missed last night's show, so here's to you. Thank you so much for that, Jay. Let's see here, but while we take some more calls as they come in. Let's see. Haywood says, my nephew and his wife, who had twin boys about a year ago, just had twin girls on March 5th. I wonder if they had IVF. Every time I hear about twins now or triplets, I think, oh, okay, it's probably IVF, because it just seems to be so common with that.
Yeah.
And now I know why, because there's more than one egg that is.
It depends, right? It could be identical twins, and then that would be one egg. That's split. But then if it's fraternal twins, then you're thinking 2 eggs, and there's one that was matured to ovulate, and it's almost like his little brother or his little sister was hanging on and saying, I'm coming with you, and then you get this double ovulation that happens at the same.
Is that really how it is? Like they get like stuck together?
Well, one will, and the second. See, what happens is it takes about 4 to 6 days for an egg to mature, and while it's maturing, the area in which it's situated inside the ovary. So the little ovum is like an egg. If you were to take like an egg and cut off the top of it, a hard-boiled egg, cut off the top of it, and inside where you see the yellow yolk, if you could just imagine you had all these little pin points of little tiny eggs in there, then one of them's getting ready to ovulate, and the one that's right beside it might get some of that nutrients and some of that feeding and some preparation in order for it to mature as well. So the main egg will leave the ovary, but within 24 hours, a second one might also go. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen.
I always wondered about that.
And then that's how you have fraternal twins. It's always the same event, though. It's not like, one happened one day and then the following week there was another ovulation. So just want to dispel that. It's always the same ovulatory event.
Yeah, that I would have assumed, but I never understood how it actually happened. My friends Keith and Randy, they are fraternal twins. Okay. And I call them fraudulent twins because a twin to me, you have to look exactly alike, or else I can tell you apart. This is a fraud. You guys aren't twins,
right? You're not identical.
They loved what I call them fraudulent twins, but that's interesting to actually all the things that you can just Google and teach yourself, and I do a fair amount of that. But there are other things that are a little bit more obvious that along the way we never really think to answer our own questions. You think about all the things like how do fraternal? I understand the identical twins where you have a splitting of the egg.
Right. Yeah.
I understand the splitting. That makes perfect sense. But I never thought to even think about. I never thought to even search on what makes a fraternal twin situation happen. Jay Sem says, "Cheers, Frank." Thank you. It's good to see you out there, Jay. Is that all we have on Rumble? Wait. I think so. Yes. Okay. Over on Pilled, and guys, the line is wide open. Don't be shy. I have other things I can talk to you about. But anyway, I thought this would be a rich night for the audience to get in on. Tommy Jekyll says, perhaps not the first, but silly bore some other, frankly, will raise presently. Well, I'll get around to, let me see here. Dear Frank. Okay, here you go. Tub of Chubb says, incredible guest, Frank, fascinating. I never heard of the Billings ovulation method, and I've lived in Billings, Montana. I'll definitely be passing this information on to the missus for when we go for number 2. Hope to have a girl. Does Ann have any advice? Okay.
Yeah.
That's something I was going to bring up. Everybody, we did this show about 2 years ago, and it turned out to be an awesome show. I got so many calls with everybody calling in with their mothers, their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers' prescriptions on what to do if you want a girl, what to do if you want a boy. And it was always a combination of timing, diet, positions, all that stuff. What's your take on this?
So, you want to get into it biologically?
Yeah.
Let's look at this biologically. So if we just take a step back and we think about the men and women in our lives, okay? So my husband and I have been married almost 38 years. We're coming up on that. And my husband's really quick to do everything. He's really quick. He's fast. He does all this. And I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but I'm pretty slow when it comes to doing things. Okay. However, my husband, after doing all his, he's done. Like he gets exhausted and then he's done for the day.
I know this is going.
Done. Like he's either flopped on the couch or he's gone off to bed or something. But I'm like this little energizer bunny, right? So I might be slow at my tasks or whatever, but I just keep doing them and keep doing them and keep doing them and keep doing them and keep doing them. And what I wanted to say is this is also present in the sperm that come from the men. So you have male sperm that have characteristics and you have female sperm that have characteristics. Okay, and I'm not going to say it's always, male sperm are fast and female sperm are slow. I'm not going to say that. But yes, if you wanted to have a little girl, we do have a study that has shown us that there is a way of orienting your sexual activity, and it doesn't involve positions or eating certain foods or time of day or anything like that. But you orient your sexual activity in order to avail yourself of female sperm or avail yourself of male sperm. Now, in a regular ejaculation, there's always going to be both. Unless, you've been to a doctor who's told you otherwise, but typically you're always going to expect there's both male and female sperm.
I don't want to derail, but what do you mean? Like a doctor say, sir, you only have female sperm, or you're overrepresented or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have heard, I don't have personal experience with it, but I have heard of couples who have said to me that we went to the doctor and they said that, my husband doesn't have any male sperm.
None.
No.
There's none present in that
None
load.
present. So,
wow.
So, the question is, well, how did you analyze that? I mean, that would be.
You have to count every one?
Yeah. How were you able to determine that? We do have one, let's say, test. So it's not really a test. It's actually more a review of sexual activity that we're able to see the viability of sperm, and if there's actually sperm present from an active intercourse and there was an ejaculation, are there sperm present or is there only seminal fluid present? So there is a way of having a look at that. But when it comes to the sperm themselves, female sperm have this tendency to live longer but swim slower. So when they're in the present in the woman's body, the female sperm have the ability overall to last longer during those days of preparation when the woman is experiencing fertile secretion. So that preparation time might be 4 to 6 days. Well, if you were to have intercourse at the beginning of that preparation time, when you first noticed that you were no longer infertile, and then, we help women understand when they are infertile, but they notice then they're no longer infertile, so they're moving towards fertility. And if they were to have intercourse towards the beginning of that time, but not have any more intercourse during their fertile days, then over that 4 to 6 period, the sperm that would last would typically be female sperm.
So
they have that endurance.
Yes, you're going at it at the beginning of the cycle, so that there's at least 3 or 4 days for the male sperm to essentially die off, only leaving the females behind.
Exactly.
And that it seems pretty logical that would be.
That's exactly it. And so if you wanted to have a little girl, you would have that intercourse once, wait until ovulation occurred, and then after ovulation, you recognize you're still fertile for about 3 days, 72 hours, and then you're infertile after that. But you would only have had that intercourse at one time. Then the sperm that were around, if there were sperm around, now it's possible they've all died after 6 days. That's possible. Okay. But typically there are some that still last. And if there are, those are going to be female sperm that are going to come to the egg. And so that would be fertilization with a female sperm. And the reverse of that is that if you wanted a little boy, then once you entered into those fertile days where you started to have that fertile secretion, you would not have intercourse at all. And you would wait until you recognize that you did ovulate, and we would help a woman know how to do that. And then towards the 3rd day after her ovulation, then we would encourage her to have intercourse at that point.
Because 3rd day after?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that point, you're really just looking at, it's a foot race. And typically, it's male sperm that are going to go into the cervix. And of course, at this point, the cervix is open because ovulation's already occurred. So the cervix is open. They all go in there. They all kind of get washed up and cleaned up. And then they go into the uterus. Then they go up into the fallopian tubes and they hunt for that egg. And usually, there's just male sperm that are going to get up there faster. So that's where you're going to have an opportunity to orient yourself to having a baby boy. And so we have actually a retired Billings ovulation method teacher in Ottawa who had a son and 2 daughters, and her and her husband decided they'd like to have another son. And that's exactly what they did. Whenever she went into her fertile time, they abstained until the very end of that fertile time. And she said it took about 12 cycles. So it was basically a year of having intercourse during that fertile time, only on that last day of when she could possibly conceive. Now, outside of that, they would have had intercourse when she was infertile, but not with the idea of trying to get pregnant, right? So just on that last day of those fertile days is when she would have intercourse to try and conceive her boy. And after 12 cycles, she did. And we have a study from Sister Leonie McSweeney. She was a sister from Ireland, but she was in Nigeria. And she did a study with 99 couples. 81 couples wanted a little boy, and 78 of those 81 couples got a little boy. That's 94.9%. And there were 18 couples that wanted a little girl, and 16 out of the 18 got a little girl. That's like 89% because it's a smaller pool. But incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It's exact. And you know, Dr. Odeblad, who spent all that time studying about the sperm and the woman's cervix, he would say, well, it makes perfect sense. That's science. It's exactly how it's supposed to work.
Well, you see,
but we're never told that.
No, we're not.
I mean,
no,
who knows that?
No,
right?
It's
probably the first time many people are hearing about this.
Yeah, we're told that. Oh, listen, the future. I mean, you're going to be designer babies, gene editing, CRISPR. That you're going to be able to run your DNA through some sort of a Willy Wonka machine and have the baby that you want.
Right.
And completely going well over the fact once again that there is a natural way of controlling all things in whatever direction you want to go in. And even down to this, I mean, when you say north of 89% accuracy, 90-something% accuracy, I mean, that's pretty incredible. And it's all just very logical when you understand biologically what's going on. And in fact, when we did have that night, where we were taking these calls and stuff, that did come through.
Right. And
the first time I heard it, I said, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Other people say, my great grandmother told me you chew on some suet and you spin 3 times and you wear, you refrigerate your underwear and wear refrigerated underwear for 3 hours a day. I don't know. Everybody's got their thing, but this just makes total sense.
Yeah.
And that's something else. Let's see. Okay. Well, then let me ask you about this then, because now it's 8:33 and we're running out of time. It always happens this way. But surrogacy.
Yeah.
Man, we have had some crazy conversations about surrogacy just in the last few years. I have learned about, just like I've learned about what people's objections to IVF actually are. We've learned about everything from just basic financial fraud like escrow theft, the sperm super donors. Like there are like men out there that are fathering 1,000 children each. Sperm and egg mix-ups, the doctors using their own sperm, and then of course we can get into all. We won't even touch any of the other, once again, social aspects of trying to be inclusive with who gets to order a child.
Yeah.
So, but what do you think about surrogacy? And I think just to a greater degree, because you were talking about, there's no money out in what you do. And I said, well, there's a lot of money out there. So talk about surrogacy. And then I would love to just see, what aspect of the fertility business you believe is most rife with fraud. Because, I mean, we hear about the latest that we're getting right now in California and elsewhere is hospice fraud. We got the daycares in Minnesota, medical transport, EBT fraud all over the place, welfare. But the fertility business, the more I learn about it, it's like, man, I understand if you want to have a child, you're willing to do anything. But if I had a choice, I'd never walk into any of these clinics, just because of the articles that have been coming out. So what do you think about surrogacy first?
That's interesting. I was just at a session, at an event at the UN last week. Right now, the Commission on the Status of Women is going on, and this happens every year. There's a commission. It's a 2-week session of meetings that take place among the different member states. And during that time, NGOs, such as my own, will come together and also put on parallel events. And there was an event I attended last week dealing with surrogacy. And it itself, I mean, we don't hear too much about it here in North America, but it's a huge booming business in Europe. Huge. And very often it caters towards the LGBT community.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it is a form of commodifying a woman's body again. So in this case, as opposed to, let's say, prostitution, where most prostitutes are part of a ring of some sort. They're not independent sex workers. They are, pimped out, or however you want to say it. They are part of a structured organization. And it's an industry that's horrific. But when we compare that to surrogacy, here the woman has more autonomy, but she is essentially renting out her body to carry and nurture, form a baby that will then be handed away from her, but to others who have paid her, money for it, for the process. So you are buying the opportunity to become a parent. And even though it seems a little bit more congeal because a woman has control over her own body, there's that whole sense of commodifying a product. It's a product of conception. And the women see it as a way of, they do this and they get $10,000. They can use it towards their school, their house, their car, whatever it is that they need to get ahead in life. But who really wins in that case and who loses? Well, the child growing inside that woman's womb has no idea that the woman that he knows or she knows for those 9 months is not going to parent him or her. So the child itself is the loss. You're doing all of this because you want to become a parent. Well, we're all children from some parents. We never asked to be children, right? We didn't like pick a number and say, okay, my turn, I want to be born now. That didn't happen. God decided for that to happen. And at a particular time, we're living now. We're not living 100 years ago or 100 years from now. We're living now. And the child that's growing inside the woman's womb is anticipating, this is my mother. This is the woman from whom I am issuing and I'm being born and who's going to raise me. And so you see these surrogates are part of an industry where baby upon baby is just brought forth, issued out. Some are born by C-section, some are born naturally, but then they're either in nurseries or directly paired up with who's ever going to be, quote unquote, adopting them as their real parents. But you're not giving that same respect or dignity to the child.
Yeah.
The child is losing out. So that whole industry, it's another form of usury. It's like having a slave. And
you see that's where another line, whenever somebody is is diminishing the value of life when they're talking about actually extinguishing a life, they'll also lean on the idea of sentience. Well, that the child's not sentient. They're not really having those thoughts themselves that I'm inside of mommy's belly, but there is an unspoken bond there that is there. There's something that transcends language that is at some point severed if they're gone.
Yep.
The question I have for you is how often do you know, maybe you don't, how often how more common is it, I should say, where a man and a woman who's having a hard time conceiving a child come to a surrogate with their sperm and egg, their embryo, and are saying, this is genetically, this is our child, but will you carry this for us? Where, that is where the baby is there for 9 months, but once they're out, it has been separated from the only heartbeat, the only everything it knows, sensory. It's been separated from everything it had, but it is still completely genetically the other couple's children. Now, when two same-sex people come in and they've essentially gone to a sperm bank and an egg storage facility, and they're mixing and matching by profiles, and they're just slapping things together. I don't even want to talk about that. But let's say you have a man and a woman. They've been trying for 15 years. They have an embryo, and they just need a womb. I understand it's still a commissioned job at that point, but how do you approach that? Because there is at least one angle there of, well, it is 100% genetically their child.
True. But how were those genes attained? So what was the process that the woman went through in order for her eggs to be removed from her body so that they could be fertilized? And then same with his sperm. And then they're implanted into another woman. So while it's true that the source was a man and a woman who were married, let's say, and they were the parents of this coming child, the enactment that brings forth that life is without the dignity and the respect that child is deserving. So you're still having to take that embryo and that egg and put it together.
And force it together.
And then you're implanting it into another person. And the aspect that, the child loses, but that surrogates, that mother, there's a psychological dichotomy that she goes through.
Yeah.
Because even though she understands it to be, okay, I'm paying to do this, I'm doing this job, this is a job I'm doing for 9 months, I'm going to give birth, and I'll give this baby over, and then, maybe I'll do it again, maybe I won't, but it's just a job. But the attachment that actually forms subconsciously and almost against the woman's will, it's like she doesn't want to form necessarily a bond with the child growing in her womb, but her body forms a bond with that child in her womb.
Out of necessity.
Yeah.
For its survival.
Yeah, it has to. And so there's this psychological effect that has to deteriorate the woman's ability to sensitivity, to empathy. It's almost like she needs to dissociate in order to survive the separation, even though it may not be knowing to her. It's like a woman who, in her early 20s decides to have an abortion and she doesn't really think about it again at all. Okay, it's fine. It was just a thing. I just did it. Doesn't really think about it. Well, that might be the case, but years down the road, as she evolves and becomes a more mature woman, there may be aspects in her life where she's now able to look at, actually, maybe there is more to that than I care to admit. Maybe there is more there that I need to be looking at, because it causes a severance in the person. So yeah, I don't see it as a positive thing at all.
Very well put. It's the first time we've actually had a complete conversation about this on this show. I'm glad I had it with you. So then I guess the follow-up question to that is, out of every aspect of the fertility business that you know of, where do you think, is there a place that, is there one thing or another about it that is like most rife with fraud that you think?
I think it's the whole issue around fertility health. I think that the whole blanket of silence, that women have been denied the opportunity to learn about their fertility. And so they've been funneled into this whole contraceptive mentality. And that's the industry that they have available to them. And I'm not even talking about internationally about women who are, forced into having to have IUDs inserted or Depo-Provera shots that are given to them. Like there's contraceptives that are banned here in the United States and in Canada, but they get shipped out to third world countries. And those women have to suffer them. They're going to be given food stamps or whatever other health that they have to have the contraception. So this whole idea that natural fertility health is discredited. If people will joke about it as being, well, if you're going to go natural, you're definitely going to end up pregnant. Well, it's like, well, I mean, I guess if you don't actually apply it, but that's true with contraception, which, is already, we see 25% of a failure rate, condoms breaking, people forget to take the pill, the IUD slips, they end up pregnant anyway. And it's designed like that. 25% of the population that are on contraception find themselves in a situation where they're having an unexpected pregnancy. And whoops, now what do? Yeah. So it's kind of designed like that. So if you're asking where the biggest fraud is, it's the whole idea that women have to use, you get to be 13, get on something. That's the idea. And we want to be teaching women and young girls, you don't need anything. You just need to know how your body works. And if this was taught in schools, and if your 13-year-old daughters were told how to respect their bodies, how their bodies work, they'd be like, okay, I don't want to see him. Get away from me. I just know that I'm going through this right now, and that's why I think you're cute, but next week you're going to be ugly again. So stay right where you are. They'll have a better self-assurance about themselves.
Yeah, guys need to know too, because their chances will get better.
Exactly.
If I had known when everybody was ovulating, I'd be like, oh man, thank God I didn't know this when I was in my my late teens. Who's ovulating this month or this week? That'd be a good time to, hey, you want to go get some dinner? Even though I didn't have any money to take anybody out on dinner. So it's crazy, Ann. This is wonderful. Yeah. It's wonderful. And you think about all the ways that we think about how the world can change and be made better. And it comes up cyclically with all the election cycles.
Right.
Every time that there's a midterm, every time there's a presidential election, the fate of the country is on the line. We're talking about trillions of dollars in budgets and what could be funded and what could be this and that. And it's almost like with just personal health, where you're talking about just getting metabolically healthy. Mm-hmm. Or going out and just getting some 30 to 45 minutes of meaningful education and meaningful movement, exercise, movement in every day. I saw somebody else out there. Should it be in like a subsidy for everybody should have gym memberships? Like gym membership doesn't get somebody in shape,
right?
Just like if most people knew. That's some of the greatest things that you can do to make yourself healthy is to learn when to say no. Most people think that, oh man, if I start changing up my diet, you think about how all this healthy food costs so much more than the shittier bargain food that I have. It's like, no, actually the biggest change costs no money at all. Mm-hmm. You'd actually be eating less or maybe the same thing in smaller quantities in a more restricted time of day.
Right.
Same thing goes with fertility we're talking about here. You don't need Congress to get together and put together a spending bill that has $85 billion earmarked just for your special interest when nature has already provided us everything we need on something like this.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's all, that's the big scam right there.
It's a huge scam. Exactly. If women were given this information, they would be able to just orient their sexuality and their sexual activity according to their goals. They could do it no problem. They're not given the information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then there's this huge lie. It's like, oh, well, they just can't control themselves, or women are never going to just wait that week out kind of thing. And it's like, well, actually, you know what? There's less and less people having less and less sex. So it's really not that hard.
It's true.
And people tend to be more tired now anyway. So it's, you know, if you're thinking, okay, well, there's a week where I'm fertile. Yep. Okay. And I don't want to have a baby. Okay. So that's, I mean, do weeks ever go by when we don't have sex? I'm going to say yes. Weeks go by when we don't have sex. That happens.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, the people are in the chat room are loving you down.
Oh, okay.
They're thanking you. They're thanking you for coming out. They're thanking you for all the wonderful the information. They love the way that you communicate it. Okay. And I know that we're all. I'm just interested in your work in general. So anytime you find yourself, you know, swinging through New York, you let me know. I'm sure that there's more stuff that we can bring up. Although we did a lot tonight.
Yeah,
we did a lot tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I was glad to talk to you about it and get it out there. And tell your friends, everybody. Tell your friends, you know, and if you want to help, you can download my book and leave a little review, because it doesn't have any reviews. In the United States, maybe it's got 1 or 2 reviews on it. So have a little read and leave a review and
let me
tell
see.
Your friends.
Ann Belanger. Oh yeah, it's true. Ladies and gentlemen, look. I'm putting it up on the screen right now. Fertility business, Ann Belanger. It has 1 5-star review, actually. So it has 1 review. 1
review in the United States. I have a few more in Canada.
But guys, this is the big one right here. If you want the hardcover is $40. The paperback is $12. But right now, tonight, if you want this book on your Kindle app, and I'm pretty sure Kindle is free, you link it with your Amazon, it's $0. Like right now, you could be reading her book 5 minutes from now.
That's right.
So, and of course, we're going to be giving away a hardcover on Thursday. So that's great. Is there anything else is there a website? I mean, I know this is a sensitive topic, so I understand why a lot of people maybe didn't want to call in and get personal.
Yeah.
But I'm sure people want to talk.
I understand that. Yep. But they can certainly reach out to me. And they can go to my website, fertilitylife.org, or it's fertilitybusiness.org, just like the book is called. And you can contact me there on the website. That's possible. Yep, that's was a UN presentation that I made back in 2017, and that was to the member states. That particular one. This is
fertilitybusiness.org.
Yeah.
Hold on, we actually have one call coming through. Okay. Santino, you are on the air.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. You're on with Ann and I.
Well, Ann, I would like to say, is very respected by me as your guest. This young lady seems to be very bright and well informed. I shouldn't say seems to be. I'm a dummy, Ann. So I respect you and everything you're putting forth for your fellow women and all that. Yeah. It's all information that's pertinent and should be out there. So, as the coloreds would say, big ups to you.
Yeah, thank
you. But I do have a question though, a personal question.
Uh-huh.
So you talked about orientating your sexual behavior, but what if I don't want an Oriental baby? Then I shouldn't orient, right?
Right.
Leave it to Santi.
That's it. She listens to the show, so I'm sure she was waiting for this call to come in. Well, thank you, King.
God bless you, Ann. You're a great guest. Thank you for taking the time to do my friend Frankie's show.
Yes.
God bless you.
All right. Oh, you know, Ann, I said a quiet prayer when I picked up the line. I said, please, Santino, just be on your best behavior tonight, please.
He was fine. He was
yes,
good.
I know. All right. Well, anyway, that's it. It is 8:54. You mind if I drag you into the flip side for 10
No,
minutes?
that's fine. It's great. I'm all yours
Great.
this evening. That's super.
Fantastic. Well, everybody, fertilitybusiness.org. I will put that in the description of the episode. More information there. Like Ann had said, her book is absolutely free to download. I would just get it out. That's until what, midnight Eastern time?
Yep, and it'll be free again on Thursday. On Thursday, I have a presentation that I'm making at the UN as well to other NGO, and I was advertising it today to many people, and they were all very excited about coming. And so the book will be free on Thursday as well.
Guys and gals, if for the vast majority of you who listen to this on podcast and also watch this after the fact, obviously tomorrow morning it will not be free.
Mm-hmm.
So just make a note that on Thursday, whenever the clock strikes midnight Thursday morning, please remember you have another chance this week to get this this book for free. And please get in touch with Ann. She has a wonderful business, and she's dedicated so decades of her life now to such a noble cause. And I hope hope many people in the audience have more babies because of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm hoping, too, that women out there who are on contraceptives and don't want to be on them anymore, I want you to reach out to me also, and I want to help you.
Okay. That's it, ladies. Oh, you know what? Before we leave, let me make sure I didn't miss any of the super chats. You can leave a super chat over the course of the evening, overnight, quite frankly, superchat.com, and I will read it off tomorrow, and you'll be in the running for all the silver and now 2 gifts from Ann. Let's see here. Anonymous says, ask about vaginal birth after cesarean. It's a VBAC, right?
Yes.
Okay,
right.
we'll bring that into the flip side. So just click on over. I'm going to put the link in the chat room. I always put the timestamped link to the flip side on the pinned comments. You can check it out there. And if you don't see the link in the chat room when we hit the lights on the end credits, then just go to quitefrankly.tv and press play. I always put the pilled chat in there, but yeah. Let's see. Stowstube says, evening, Frank. Just dropping off a little daily token of appreciation for, once again, great independent media that we all know and love. And love you, Frank and Franklies. Thank you. Avrevs say, hey, Ann, what do you think of the O and P shot for to preserve sexual organ health and promote fertility? Love you, Frank. Here's another question we should probably bring to the other side. Only because it's 10 to 9.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Avrev, come on over. We're going to do that. ST says, Ann is a gem. Wonderful guest. I agree.
Thank you.
Jay Britt's wonderful. That's from before.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's just loving it. Hold on. Over on Rumble, I think we had one more. Haywood says, no IVF, all natural. Twins run in her family, and I need that silver, so I got to get a big. So okay, well there you go. Natural twin. I know some families have
I know
it.
some. Yep. I definitely know some. Yep.
I saw it on Instagram a couple of days ago. I saw somebody getting an ultrasound on Instagram for some reason, and it was like, wait for it. And at the end, the ultrasound and the attendant there, the engineer, she goes, oh, wait, it's twins. And everybody's like, oh, you know, the mother and the father, they're excited. He saw 2 heartbeats, and then she said, hold on. She said, so almost like brace yourself.
Yeah.
It's triplets. So the first thing I did was I went to the comments because I wanted to see, is this IVF?
Mm-hmm.
And no. According to the person who uploaded it, natural triplets.
Yep.
I mean, how rare is that these
it's
days?
Very rare. You know, we did have one article of a woman who actually had 5 babies.
At once?
At once. All natural. So she had 2 sets of twins, and she had 1 singleton, and they were 3 separate ovulations.
At one? In one batch?
Yeah. Amazing, huh? I know.
And
all within the same ovulatory event.
Wow.
And then the doctors were thinking, oh, twins. And then, 2 twins. Wow. And then when she was giving birth, then they found the singleton. She actually had 5 children.
I have to...
Yeah,
Wow.
and you would think, oh, they must have used something. Nope, they didn't use anything.
I have to imagine that is going to be a cesarean.
I don't remember. It could have been that they were born by cesarean. It could be because at that point you are so full.
Yeah, I think about it's like, I'm thinking about the gumball machine.
That's right.
And it's like, how does the next baby feed into the feeder and just keep coming out? I don't know. I have to imagine. Now, the real question is if that freak situation, that like 1 in a trillion kind of a situation happened in 1732, is everybody dying? Or is there
right?
Are
how did it happen if it was 100 years ago and there was no cesarean?
Right.
Yeah. I see.
You got to get those 5 children out of that one woman.
Right.
So that's crazy. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I had the article. Yeah, it is.
Well,
wild.
we'll talk about some more of this on the other side, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for everything. Let's get over. Hold on, let me put the link in the chat room. And yeah, more with Ann Belanger. So don't go anywhere. And Ann, next time you're in, you are more than welcome to come by and hang out.
Great. Thank you.
All right, guys, follow us over. Of course. And you were in the studio to see me screw up the end. It's a tradition.
It's okay. It's a tradition.
There you go.
Yes,
so you got a
there
call
go.
from King, and you saw me screw up the end credits.
That's all right.
Great.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Come to the flip side. Thank you, everybody. Welcome and goodbye. Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience in front of you, a global audience all over the place. And now, thank you to the super chatters, but it's not done just yet. Click the link in the chats, and we'll see you in a second. Good night.